reaching out for a hand to hold. So that's what your problem is you just want to hold somebody's, hand. And I'm like, do you guys call yourself doctors? How is holding somebody's hand make a difference on your knee? I was like, what? And he says, yeah. Because you can tell by the way you're walking, that it's like you're reaching for somebody's hand to hold on to. And I didn't. I wasn't reaching for anything. I just walked down the hall, turned around, and came back. So that was another trip. But anyway, I never did get the knee x-rayed or whatever. I did wear a brace on it for probably a year, maybe longer, before it finally, and then they actually sent me to physical therapy. And the physical therapist did a whole lot more than the VA did. He did an actual real exam on the knee and measurements, and he did all kinds of stuff. So then, even him, as soon as he looked at it, he knew there was a problem. So anyway, I did the whole physical therapy thing, which was fine. The girls there were really funny. Some of the stuff that we were talking about, and being cold, and certain things on women protruding when they get cold and stuff. And anyway, it was just really funny. The girls there were fantastic, and we used to really joke, around. So anyway, after the physical therapy, I forget how many weeks of that it was. Afterwards, he re-examined the knee, took all measurements and everything, and he wrote a letter to the VA saying that I didn't respond to therapy for the knee. It didn't do any good. You have to do something else. So anyway, they ignored it, didn't do anything. There's more things too, but I'm not going to go into all of them. This thing would be too long. But the latest thing, get this. I have heart problems. My blood pressure drops down so low that the cuff won't even take a reading, and it stops at 40. Anything less than 40, it won't take a reading. So I've had the EMS out 3 or 4 times for that. Went to the hospital a couple times. Didn't find nothing. Said, well, it's not your heart. So the VA had me wear a patch, on my chest. Had me wear a patch. And I said, it's random. It doesn't happen weekly. It doesn't happen monthly. It'll happen 2 or 3 times a week, and then I could go a month or 2 and not have anything happen. So anyway, they put a patch, had me wear a patch. This is during Corona, where they weren't seeing anybody in person. You had to do it over the phone. Okay, well, we'll mail you a patch to put on. So I'll put the patch on, sent it in, and they said, well, they told me it detected something. I don't know what it was. Couldn't have been good, whatever it was. But they said, well, it's not what we're looking for. So then they said, well, we'll have you wear another patch. And that took another 2 or 3 weeks to get the next patch. And then I went down to Ann Arbor when they'd finally see you, and they said, well, we're going to give you a patch to wear. And I says, I've worn the patches. It hasn't done it while I was wearing a patch. So they said, we're going to give you a patch to wear. Fine. So they gave me another patch to wear, and it didn't do it. It did it the day before I got the patch on. And it didn't do it while I was wearing the patches. Are only good for 2 weeks. So that didn't do any good. So then they were supposed to put a loop recorder in, and they didn't want to put a loop recorder in. They just make a incision on your chest, slip it under the skin, and it records your heart. Anyway, they didn't want to put a loop recorder in, which is good for 3 years, and that would catch whatever's wrong. So anyway, then I went to a real doctor, real cardiologist, and told him what was going on. Told him the exact same thing I told the NP, nurse practitioner, up in Saginaw, which is another quack. Told the same thing to the cardiologist down in Ann Arbor. Nothing. So I told my real cardiologist, I told him, I figured, well, I got to pay out of pocket. Their office visit's like $200 or whatever it is. So anyway, I go to him, told him exact same thing I told the quacks in Saginaw and the quacks down in Ann Arbor. He says, okay. He said, I'm going to try you on this medication. So I'm like, okay. And he says, it's expensive. He says, I don't want to break the bank because I know, you're not working right now. It's because basically my heating and cooling company I gave up to take care of Michael. I was gone for 20 months. You lose all your customers. So anyway, I paid for it and paid for the medication. And the whole time I was on the medication, I didn't have any of those symptoms where my blood pressure would drop and what have you. And I mean, it would drop bad. Then the heart rate would be beating like crazy. My normal heart rate is in the high 50s, 60 or below. Real quick on the cardiology thing. While I was in Ann Arbor getting checked out, my heart rate at nighttime drops so low that it sets off the heart monitors. That's how low it drops when I start to fall asleep. And the girl, the nurse would come running in and, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Still kicking. And so when it was funny, the next day, she told the cardiologist, well, his heart rate dropped last night. It was below 50. And she goes, well, no, that's okay. As long as it doesn't drop to 40. And she goes, well, it did drop to 40. And she says, well, no, that's okay. As long as it doesn't drop to 30. And she says, it did drop to less than 30. And she's like, oh, that's okay. So it's like, wait a minute. It was okay if it dropped less than 60, which I agree with that. Then it dropped less than 50, and you said that's not okay. Oh, it dropped less than 50. Well, that's okay. It dropped as long as it doesn't drop less than 40. It dropped less than 40. Well, that's okay. Well, which is it? So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in. So he put me on this medication. Didn't have, after being on it for a week or so, didn't have any symptoms at all. Then it ran out because I couldn't afford it. Too expensive. And so I figured VA, because it's like some of the blood thinners and stuff I was on was ridiculously priced. Getting the VA to give them to me was impossible. So anyway, then I let the VA know I was on this medication for my heart, for the problems, and while I was on it, I had no symptoms whatsoever. And they sent me to an outside doctor for a second opinion, told him the same thing, and he said, well, we'll put a loop recorder in. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but while I was on this medication, I didn't have any symptoms. Well, we'll put a loop recorder in. So even they didn't want to give me the medication. So then the VA, I contacted, I don't know how many people there trying to get the medication. They won't give it to me. So then I called the White House complaint number for the VA, and today they called and says, well, we need a note, a doctor's note, right? We need a note from the outside doctor, not the same one they sent me to. This is a different doctor. This is a real cardiologist. We need a note from him saying why he put you on that medication. It's like, you guys are fucking idiots. He put me on the medication because I needed it. And while I was on the medication, I didn't have any of the symptoms. So it's like, that right there should be like, you know what? Okay, we're going to try you on that medication to see if it works. But they would rather you drop dead. They're hoping, okay, I told them what the blood pressure would drop to and all that, and they weren't concerned. I'm like, that was barely coherent. Well, did you pass out? I'm like, not that I know of. Well, then you're fine then. So you got to pass out and be laying on the floor dying before it's not okay, I guess. So anyway, I got to get a note. So I'm going, and it's going to cost me. So I have to go back to a real cardiologist, get a note from him for the VA quacks, telling them why I should be on that medication so the VA will cover it, right? The VA is horrible. They suck. You had AOC when all the veterans were dying waiting to get care, and she was like, we don't fix what ain't broke. Veterans were dying from lack of care. Well, that's what Michael died from, was lack of proper treatment is what he died from, is what the official letter from the Department of Defense said. And it's like, and he was active duty. He should have got good care. So anyway, so I have to get a note from an outside cardiologist to give to the VA to try to get them to give me the medication that would fix my heart. And it's like, I would think the cost of putting in, I'm still fine with the loop recorder, don't get me wrong, But I'm sure that loop recorder is going to cost a fortune to put that in. But anyway, so they literally, it's like, yeah, so they'd rather you die than take care of you. Now, I got to give kudos to the doctor that I have now, regular MD. Fantastic. She absolutely, the guy that she replaced, the guy, when I first started, I switched from obviously Flint because they didn't do anything for me. Then when I started going to Saginaw, they assigned me a doctor. It took quite a while to get somebody. But anyway, I got somebody and he was really good. Tell him what's going on. Okay. Prostate exam. I couldn't get the VA to give me a prostate exam, right? And it's just like a pap smear. You got to get it done once a year. But the VA wouldn't do it. So I actually had to contact Senator Carl Levin in Congress to get the VA to give me a prostate exam. And he contacted the right people. You know, he was like, well, it's not a congressional matter, but I'm going to contact, you know. So he handled it for me. I finally got the exam, and they did the exam. Then I had a problem with medications. I contacted Senator Carl Levin and the head of the hospital in Ann Arbor because they wouldn't pay for my medications. He wrote Senator Carl Levin back saying there's been no changes in his medications. And Senator Carl Levin, you know, told me that. He says, well, this is the letter I received from the head of the hospital in Ann Arbor, and he said there was no changes in your medication. And I says, they quit giving me these medications. And I said, so how is that not a change in my medications when they quit giving them to me? And that's all they do is lie and cover each other's ass. But anyway, then the doctor that I was seeing up in Saginaw left, and moving him up in administration. And I said, yeah, I hear they're moving you to administration. And he goes, well, who'd you hear that from? That's all, you know, just rumors. And he chuckled and he says, yeah, he says, I'm hoping I can do more good up there. And I said, well, you know, you're a hell of a doctor. You're a really good doctor. He gave me a prostate exam. As soon as I mentioned something, he was like, bam, bend over, let's do this. And he was training the girl doctor that I was seeing, that I'm seeing now. And he said, well, is it okay if she stays in the room? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't care. And he said, well, is it okay if she examines you, you know, your prostate also? And I'm like, gotta learn, man. I said, bring them all in. I said, more the merrier. And I try to be funny when I go to the doctors, and I always get her laughing. And so anyway, he moved up to administration, and when I go in to see her, any questions, any problems, I mean, she literally is a good doctor. Those were the first two doctors in the VA, after going there probably for 15, 20 years, whatever it was, that was actually real doctors. So I don't want you to think everybody at the VA is bad. Most of them are. So anyway, she was really good. The mental health that I see now, she's been there for a couple of years, and it's like she kind of settled in, so it's almost like I'm a bother, you know, going in and bothering her because I said I need weekly because I've been in rough shape. And so I've been told her, I said I need to come in weekly, and I don't think she thinks I need to be there weekly, but I don't really care. You know, I think I need to be there weekly. I'm coming in weekly. You know, so and at first when I would go there, whatever appointments I needed, she didn't have a problem with it. Now it seems like she does. I'm not saying she does. So, you know, I'm not saying that positively, but it sure seems like it. But anyway, that's just some of the stuff with the VA. But getting a doctor's note from a real cardiologist to give the cardiologist at the VA to give me the medication. Who ever heard of another doctor writing a note for another doctor saying, well, here, this is why he needs the medication? They're idiots. And I'm supposed to get the note. No. You tell a doctor, he says, who do you... I go to Joe Schmo. Okay, we'll send for your records. They want me to go there, get the note, pay out of pocket to go there so I can see him to get the note to give the VA doctors to get on a medication that I should be on that they don't want to pay for. It's just like the blood thinner I'm on, Xarelto, I think it is. They switched. And this was right after I sent a letter to President Trump about the VA and about Michael and what have you. And when I went and seen the MP, the quack one, I told her, she goes, well, you need to be on that. I said, my outside cardiology, I says, put me on it. He switched me from Plavix. Plavix was another issue. Getting it out of them was next to impossible. So she says, well, we're not going to give it to you. And I says, I need to be on that blood thinner. So then she goes, oh, wait a minute. And she goes, I got something this morning on this. And I'm sure it was because of the letter I sent to the White House, because a couple of days before that I had a couple of calls from people getting their ass chewed out because they weren't doing their job. And they were like, oh, I guess you contacted the White House. Got real cocky with me. And I'm like, yeah, if you would have done your job, I wouldn't have had to do that. And so anyway, I just thought I would run a little bit some of my care. I could go on and on and on about the VA, great freaking healthcare. They don't care about the veterans. But anyway, I just thought that was funny that I have to get a doctor's note from an outside cardiologist that I have to pay for to give to them so they'll put me on the medication. Then there's no guarantee they're going to put me on it. They may look at his note and say, well, that's not a good enough reason. Right? It's crazy shit like that, people. But the VA sucks. The healthcare sucks. Cardiology is horrible. The MD, the me doctors, I can't say anything bad about her. She is fantastic. Even if I secure message her, she gets back with me right away. I actually had the NP, the nurse practitioner, who gives me my medications. In Saginaw, I ran out of the blood thinner, and I says, well, I need a new script for the blood thinner. Those are all told, whatever. And she secured messaged me back, said, well, I don't prescribe that medicine. You have to go through epidemiology. That would take a month to get in there. Then they would have to do blood work and stuff, and it would probably take a month and a half to 2 months before they would actually give me the medication. And by then, I would probably have clots or whatever, and I'd probably die. That's what they were hoping for. So then I secure messenger back, and I says, on the medication, it says, provider, her name. And I says, it says right on the bottle that you are the provider. This is exactly what it says. And I said exactly what it said. And then I ended up calling the VA crisis line, because I was just, getting suicidal. Not just from the VA, but from other sources also. And so anyway, so then the next day she called me back. And her nurse secured messaged me and said, she goes, yeah, she says, we'll fill it for you. And it's like, yeah, why in the hell did you just say right off the top of your head, well, I don't give out that medication. You have to go through epidemiology. It's like, you're the one that prescribed it in the first place. So it's shit like that, people, that the VA just sucks. Yeah, I could go on and on about the VA, but the tape's already too long. So I appreciate you watching. None of this stuff is made up, man. This is all factual shit. So I appreciate you watching my video. Thumbs up. Fine. Rumble. Whatever. It's all good. I just appreciate you watching my videos. And I know I need to keep them short, but VA bashing, hard to keep that short. And I didn't even go all over it. So this is just some of it.